All right. Well, welcome and bienvenue to another weekly Neurotech San Francisco Hack Night. NeurotechX is an international community that facilitates the advancement of neurotechnology. Our pillars are community, education, and innovation. We have chapters worldwide, meetup events, and a thriving online community, almost 5,000 on Slack now. So check your local community for a meetup near you. If you don't have one, get in touch. We'll love to help you set one up. Also, check if you're a student, check if there's a student club already in your university or college. And again, if not, and you're interested, get in touch. We'd love to help you set one up. So check.
Which is your favorite pillar, Morgan?
Oh, community.
Community. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Although, yeah, guy. I'm blanking on what the third one is now.
Innovation.
There you go.
They're all good pillars. But...
They're all good.
I was thinking like we could have a bit of banter at the end of your intro thing. That's why I was jumping in there.
I like it. I definitely need to work on this. I saw Yannick do it, and he really fleshed out the three pillars,
Right.
But I can't ad lib that. I would need to go from a script. Anyway,
this podcast called The Very Bad Wizards. They have they go in every time, and it's like one guy says something, and it's a wisecrack basically, and that's it's always the opening line. It's like some wisecrack. I don't think I'm funny enough to have a really good wisecrack.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, certainly my what was the there was a Linux show in the UK, and the Ubuntu community manager was part of it. God, what was the? Anyway, yeah, I aspire to their banter, but I can't pull it off.
we should have a practice session at some point. But yeah, where a couple of us can all try to play off each other, because I know, like, for me, I actually can't use a script. I have to ad lib everything. I can't use a script anymore. But I know that depending on person, it's hard to make sure to say everything in a concise amount of time.
I feel like I just black out and the words come out of my mouth, and then people are like, "Oh, okay, that made sense."
And then you wake up the next morning.
Yeah, that public speaking, yes.
Anyway, but you said the Ubuntu people have the banter. Like, well, I sent a pun coming. You banter.
It was
Ubuntu.
John, are you okay?
He's trying to come up with a pun.
I think we did.
Can you put on your open BCI and get an EEG readings of what just went on there?
Wasn't it like John Bono was the community manager? But this is before he started as the community manager for Ubuntu. I will look it up. But before we get into banter, I just want to say, if anybody, for those that are joining the first time, now would be a great time to just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're looking for here. We'd love to hear from you.
Hey, I'd like to introduce myself.
First,
Sure.
I'm Nivi. I moved to SF a couple of years back and have been a member of this group for a long time, but I've never been able to attend it because of time constraints and because of the location that I'm at. It always involved taking Caltrains and spending at least an hour to get there. So never able to attend it, and I'm excited to be here for the first time. A little bit about myself. I have worked I've been very interested in brain-computer interfaces. I worked more towards some biological molecular response with microelectrode arrays, but I've never worked with EEG signals as such. And I've done my PhD in electrical engineering, worked with deep brain stimulation and such.
Oh,
So yeah, looking forward to meet people interested in the same field.
awesome. And are you working at a company where you're doing deep brain stimulation?
No, it's a little bit different now. I'm working as a data scientist, algorithm engineer with wearable devices.
Sure.
Yeah, no more BCI or neuro, but I would want to go back to it at some point.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's great. Welcome. Was there anybody else who wanted to introduce themselves?
I'll go ahead. Hey, everyone. My name is Dan Schmitz. This is my first time attending a San Francisco event. I'm actually down in Austin, Texas.
Cool.
I have been working with BCI devices just kind of as a hacker for several years, and then in the last 3 years, have been working with a group of developers on some APIs and development tools for BCI in general. So if you have more questions about that, I can certainly talk about that. But most of all, just looking forward to getting to know other people in the community and people who are passionate about this too. So,
Cool. Yeah, no, thanks, Dan. I got in touch because I saw that you had posted something on the, I think it was the Muse channel on Slack. And so, yeah, I'm hoping at some point we can get Dan to come and give us a demo of tools that he's been working on. And yeah, particularly, those are the best demos. If they're tools that other people can use too. Sorry, anybody else who'd like to introduce themselves?
I'll jump in real fast. Sorry, I can't figure out how to get my video on. Hi, my name is Alchemy. I'm a background in CNIT as a student, and my interest in neuroplasticity is mainly like audio based. I don't have any like feedback loops to like look directly at the result, but I've been interested in like the Schumann resonance and like isochronic tones, things like that to help develop plasticity and the certain mind state that people are shooting for. So that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome.
Have you been reading Nunes?
I'm not. I can't say offhand, but I'll definitely look into the name.
The Schumann resonance. That's this kind of analogy from. That's where I've heard it from, and I don't imagine there are that many people who go around talking about Schumann resonance.
The frequency of a brain in deep meditation is exactly the same as the Earth's magnetic frequency.
Yeah, right.
And so I just that's just an astounding coincidence right there, so I find some significance in that.
So there's a guy who's one of my kind of intellectual heroes. His name's Paul Nunes, and he's he's really one of the kind of the most important people in the development of like understanding the physics of EEG, but also in computational neuroscience. But he has this analogy in one of his books with so Schumann resonance is like a geoelectrical phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
But he's like using the physical analogy of the Schumann resonance as this kind of resonant pattern that comes from reverberations around the shell of the Earth, right? The shell of this spherical object, as an analogy to the resonant patterns that you see in the EEG, right? Or more to the point, in the cortex, which is also a kind of spherical object that has this crust around the outside that generates the electrical activity, because that's what the cerebral cortex basically is.
Oh yeah, I believe it. I believe that like Guy is as much an organism as any of us.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's got the classic Electric Fields of the Brain book. certainly, and Ramesh Srinivasan, who's a student of his at Emory, ended up as one of the staff scientists at Electrical Geodesics. So we were, it was like Nunez was like basically like the first book we were given. Like, oh, if you want to work here, you need to, and it's like it's a big tome.
Sounds like I followed his work without knowing his name to credit him specifically, but definitely a look. Thank you for the guide tip on Paul Nunez.
And as just a random aside, I mean, I think I dropped this in random on Slack, but Caltech making this extra shielded chamber so that they could do EEG of magnetic field detection. Anyway, if you're not on Slack, get in touch. I'll send you the link. The link's on the meetup instructions, and you can see. I was particularly interested in terms of how Caltech would make a shielded EEG chamber, but but it was interesting that they were basically saying that people were sensitive to magnetic fields.
Electricity too.
Now, well, yeah, at the current levels we're injecting.
Yeah, I remember like Popular Science and quite a few big publications have been over the years, every couple of years, talking about like those specific towns in the US that have extremely low magnetic and electrical fields, and that there are people who moved there specifically because they're sensitive to it, but that no one has been able to prove or disprove this stuff because we use electronics to measure brain activity. So it's like,
again, check out this Caltech. They were they knew what they were doing.
yeah. So if Caltech has actually figured out a way to do that, I'd really love to hear more about that stuff, because the amount of electromagnetic, like atmospheric electromagnetics that we are generating before 120 years ago or so was like 20-30 orders of magnitude lower than what we're currently generating all around us. And I mean, we know what microwaves do to people and to food, but what do other frequencies that generally pass through everything do is kind of an interesting idea.
Well,
aren't clean rooms, or what's the concept called for MRI rooms?
You have a lot of shielding.
Like in a copper cage. Would that have been necessary 100 years ago? You still have to account for the stuff coming off of the Earth?
I don't think you would. Well, certainly MEG, magnetic field sensors in the old days, and that just means like the 90s. They would maybe go put them in a field, and I think the MEG Center in York, I believe, is out in a field. It's like get it away from things. Yeah, I mean, these days
there are some darker types of crystals which are good for absorbing the EM frequency too.
Well, I will believe you on that. What we're let me just keep us going. We've got a couple speakers today, and so Mavi, are you on? Okay, I don't see her yet. So I just want to, some people are on the East Coast, which means that it's already 9:30. And so I want to try and get anybody who's on the East Coast started first. Let me just check. Okay, she needs a bit more time. So this week, lots going on this week. Certainly, you know, we've been talking about the Neuralink demo that's going to be tomorrow. And so certainly, you know, one thing that I've noticed this week is that there's been lots of news. There's been lots of implant news. And I think it's like a lot of the other companies getting you know, a little jealous at all the attention that Neuralink's getting. Nia Therapeutics had an announcement this week in terms of getting another, I believe it's just another grant, maybe it's another round of funding, but this is the company that basically spun off from the RAM project. So this is like a closed loop stimulator for enhancing memories or potentially recovering memories. Let's see who else. Brainway got FDA clearance for neurostimulation for smoking cessation, which you know, I looked at it. It goes from like, you know, 10% success to 20% success, which wasn't, you know, I guess it was statistically significant.
So a lot of people though.
Yeah, and that could be, but I wasn't quite sure, you know, like what they're actually recommending in terms of a number of, you know, like TMS sessions or something. Anyway, the conference that was like seems that it was definitely planned to coincide with Neuralink's announcement is going on in San Diego right now, which is the MRSI clinical implants, and started today. He's going all day tomorrow as well. Great set of speakers, and you know, UCSF's own Ed Chang was the keynote speaker this morning. So, you know, obviously talking about language decoding work, but the one that it was super impressive, was Tim Dennison, who's now at Oxford, and talking about company bioinduction, and the Open Minds Consortium. Some really, you know, this is all implantable, you know, implants. So nothing non-invasive at this conference, but at the same time, what you could really tell, you know, and again, like nobody was talking about the Neuralink announcement tomorrow, or, you know, the Neuralink demo tomorrow, but at the same time, what you could see from this conference was a lot of commercial interest. And so in addition to having, you know, a really great set of academic speakers, they also had, you know, FDA and, you know, related kind of like, you know, compliance organizations, as well as DARPA, as well, you know, and NSF. Actually, NSF did a really, you know, big overview in terms of medium-sized infrastructure, which honestly I never caught a talk like that where they were talking about basically grants that were like 20 million or up, you know, and it seemed more like building centers than you know, a particular grant. So they were calling it like mid-size infrastructure, but and a whole bunch of startup mentors associated with them too. So let me just, sorry, I should have had this link lined up. Did anybody post this? Or Sorry, I sent the. Is Diego on? Okay, let me get my. Let me check my mail. Because it's. Oh, sorry. MSRI. Okay, here we go. Um, And I just dropped the link in there for the Open Minds Consortium as well. So, you know, great set of talks. Hopefully they'll be up on YouTube later. They weren't exactly clear about that, but I saved lots of links. Really nice in terms of you know, very they were very careful about what's really possible in the next, you know, 3 to 5 years. But also really clear. I mean, what they were really setting out was, you know, so you have an idea about, you know, implanting something and, you know, dealing with a particular condition. Like, you know, these are the steps you would take. And, you know, these are the steps, not only how to fashion a research program around that, but also how to build a company around that. So, yeah. And Tim Dennison had this one. He did an article for a student magazine on bioelectronic devices that I'm just going to post too, because I thought it was actually a really nice intro. And yeah. So if you're looking for something, you know, something with some of the history of bioelectronic medicine and you know, you can go to DARPA's electric site to see the kinds of things that they're working on. But I think this PDF is actually a much nicer intro. And as you see on this, they're targeting a lot of non-brain stuff too. You know, there's a lot of peripheral neuromodulation, and that's going to be the focus of next week's talk. So definitely join us next week for you know, clinical peripheral neuromodulation. So yeah, any questions about that, or
no, thanks for sharing those.
yeah, there's, you know, it's basically I mean, you know, Ed Chang at UCSF, and then neurosurgeons at OHSU and UCSD talking about their work as well. And yeah, and a lot of startup advice too, which was interesting. Again, like, it was funny that nobody mentioned Neuralink the entire time. which I just thought was like, that's why we're here, isn't it? Or,
So what? Neuralink are doing a big announcement. Do we know
tomorrow?
And do we know what they're announcing?
Well, they're not just announcing; they are. I mean, all claims from Musk need to be, put in the context of we should have auto drive, right? But this is going to be a demo.
Oh, okay.
So not really clear, what the extent of that demo will be, except that, given the scientists that he has, that it will probably be some sort of, motion control, or motor control. But yeah, I think it's purposely being kept as a big reveal for tomorrow. I did see, I wasn't, I don't keep up on Neuralink news, but it's, again, like Slack is useful for some of the posts that came along with the announcement. So somebody posted, something from Engadget or Verge or something, and somebody else posted some news reports that like not everything's going well at the company, at least company morale, and maybe some question of like what should the direction be, because like only, I think the article was saying that only 2 of the original 8 scientists are still there, and but I'm not so interested in that kind of like criminology. We are expecting a demo, so we'll see. And I thought, I mean, I've got more links that so, I mean, some of the other speakers were like Synctron. So for those who haven't caught it, you can find the NeurotechX Buzz-in review on YouTube. That was last January, February, and certainly like some of the we covered a lot of these companies, right, in terms of Neotherapeutics, Synctron, which makes the Stentrode. I think NeuroPace, I think we talked about. Anyway, the principals from those companies were all speaking at this, and yeah, so good stuff. I hadn't seen bioinduction before, and so there was some. I've got some additional links that will hopefully be our updates in terms of this kind of implanted neuromodulation. What else? Let me just see. I think it was following up on this Open Mind Consortium, seemed particularly interesting, and yeah, that this Tim Dennison at who's now at Oxford. His set of conflicts was pretty extensive. So at the beginning of his talk, he has like I'm a consultant for this set of companies, but they are definitely building some stuff with King's and Imperial that look really good. So speaking of Oxford, for those that might be interested, the autumn school in neuroscience is going to be free for all September 28th and 29th. Of course, it will be on UK time, which is kind of sucks for those of us on the West Coast. But check it out. It's got great speakers, and at least they are putting everything online. I'm particularly excited about the computational psychiatry course that's going to happen in Zurich, but I don't believe any of that's going to be online. I think the registration is closed for it.
The Zurich computational psychiatry course, they have recorded stuff from the last few years.
From the last, okay.
Yeah, and so does the London one as well, and they're very overlapping because it's like Friston and Klaus Stefan, but there's lots of stuff for between the London and the Zurich computational psychiatry courses, like plenty to keep you busy for a few weeks.
Yeah, no. I mean the reading list is available and it's huge. So the computational psychiatry in London, that's Reed Montague, right? Or I mean, I think he's one of the.
Yeah, and I mean, originally it was Ray Dolan. I don't know what its current state is, but again, like if you, there's definitely archives, and I've like downloaded them as MP3s and listened to them in the gym and stuff. And there's lots of cool stuff from, if you just Google like London computational psychiatry course or UCL computational psychiatry, and then Zurich computational psychiatry course, and they're both like websites with stuff.
Cool. I with Neuromatch, I'm just expecting everything to be, crowdcast or like, but anyway, yes, that's great. And the reading list is definitely there. And as is all the speakers. And, you can also put together a lot from just pulling up the most recent papers from the speakers. This is coming up. I'm just trying to remember what other courses are. Well, right now at Berkeley is the Simon Institute is doing a very cool machine learning geometry probability boot camp. Which Simon's Institute is really awesome, and that everything is live on YouTube, and immediately archived too. Okay, so I'm just checking. See, Mavi, are you? See if she's on. Anybody else who'd potentially like to introduce yourself, or is there any news of the week that you'd like to discuss?
I have something I'd like to mention. It's not currently related neuroscience, but in the coming years, it could be kind of an important turning point, is that in the VR industry, Facebook just pretty much consolidated Oculus into Facebook and is over the next couple of years going to absolutely require your Facebook account to be directly linked to your Oculus headset. And you can't use a fake account. It will be used to serve ads in the headset, and it will be tracking data from the headset. So like if you do EEG and VR and you happen to be using an Oculus headset, Facebook will be getting all of your EEG data if it's streaming.
Think about a password.
Oh God, think about password. Oh, that's, yeah, okay, password protection.
It's a bold move, right? Like, is Oculus that much of a monopoly? Because like, it seems like a risky move to do that to me.
Yeah.
Just it'll turn people off, right?
Yeah.
It already has, but the problem is there is basically no competition.
Yeah.
Right now, under $600.
Yeah.
Because the Windows mixed reality headsets that used to be the competition at that price point are all discontinued. The HTC headsets are all too expensive, and they're actually pretty fundamentally pulling out of the consumer space. Like HTC's discontinued almost every single one of its consumer headsets. And then there's companies like Pimax and a lot of other places that are other players, but they're still too expensive or not stable platforms. Same with a lot of the Chinese headsets.
So what is this? What is their monopoly or their advantage mainly based on? Is it hardware or is it software? Is it ecosystem or is it?
There's no
parts?
competition. That's the only thing.
Right, but what I mean, is it because it would be hard to build one, or is it because it would be hard to construct like the software and the ecosystem?
It's neither. It's just there hasn't to get the funding to start a VR company. Like I've helped build a number of and start up a couple VR headsets and AR headsets, and like the hardware is not that expensive. It's building it at scale efficiently, because the optics pipeline for a AR or VR headset, a prototype costs 10 grand for a good prototype of a lens. But once you get up to 100,000 units, it's 10 cents per unit for the optics. It's like the startup costs for VR or AR are generally insanely expensive. Like you need at least 10, 20 million to get a good, like, get to the point where you have a headset engineered properly that you can start making. So pretty much you are $20 million in with just a headset you now have to fund to build. And
so is this like Facebook's biggest hardware arm?
Yes, by far. And they do have some really good patents right now on certain things.
They also bought Control Labs.
Yep. It's going to be hard, and if more headsets start to get EEG and eye tracking and stuff, like you can bet that probably not the next gen Oculus headsets, but 2 generations from now, they'll probably have eye tracking, because the amount of AdSense like data from eye tracking would be, I wouldn't be surprised if companies would happily give Facebook 70% if they can get higher accuracy marketing data every view.
Sure. I mean, that's certainly the big problem, is that they're kind of like the worst brands you can imagine for privacy. But I'd love it to get somebody from Project North Star to talk about.
Yeah, I'll bring them in soon. They're about to launch some new stuff, and I'm helping them out with a couple things. I'll let them know. Because I want to put a EEG head strap and make a version of the Project North Star to be used with EEG.
I would say that I'm super excited for what North Star is about to do, and I would love to like work on an integration with their new hardware.
Yeah.
And for researchers, building your own hardware is not necessarily a bad thing. It might be how you actually get experiments done, And if you go to if you go to Smith Kettlewell Eye Research Institute here in the city, and you look at some of the ways that vision scientists are doing their stimulation, right? Like you need control over your hardware at a pretty low level. But those are it's a lot of people that have that training that now work for Facebook Reality Labs.
Yeah. Eye tracking's also one of the parts on for Project North Star, because of the way they have their optics done, it's very hard to find a spot to put any cameras. But someone just posted about how you can do real-time optics recalibration if you can have eye tracking cameras, because it can use gaze position and gaze focal position to re-estimate the divergence issues for the projections it's doing. So it could actually improve the accuracy of these projections quite a bit while your eyes are moving.
Sure. So it's we're coming up on the top of the hour. I see that Mavi has joined us. Hey, Mavi.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Are we waiting for Sweta?
No, I think Sweta is here.
Oh, okay. And yeah,
Her camera is off.
I don't actually monitor the but awesome. Give yourself a minute. Are you ready to get us started?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Am I the first one? I thought that's great.
I wanted we have Alex going to speak as well, but he's here in the Bay Area, so I wanted to be considerate for anybody who joins us on the East Coast is a hero, and so yeah. Anyway,
appreciate it.
That's why I wanted to put you guys first, and I'm not sure that's best for Sweta though if she's in India, but anyway, super glad to have you both here. And I know Mavi from learn.neurotechx.edu and the machine learning work, and I think you were also working on some other modules, I think, and
mostly the machine learning one,
but also the Spanish translations. And anyway, and now you are with Neurable, and I think you started this week.
Yes, this is my first week in Boston.
Awesome. Oh, okay. And yeah. Okay. I mean, with COVID and everything, I don't, I can imagine people starting and not necessarily moving, but you're in Boston. Did I see a video of you, you were trying something out? Were you at Neurable or were you just home?
I was with a VR headset at Neurable.
Okay. So, Sweta, would you like to introduce yourself? And sorry, and I should say you just graduated, you just got your PhD from Stony Brook.
Who?
Yes.
What?
Didn't you?
Me? Oh, me from Binghamton. Yes.
Binghamton. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
SUNY.
Yes.
Yeah.
The SUNY system.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. So, Sweta, are you with us?
We can hear you. Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you for joining us so early in the morning.
Thank you for having me. Okay,
Sure.
I'll give a brief introduction.
Please.
I'm a biomedical engineer from India. I studied in Manipal University. I graduated in 2020, just last month, and I worked on a motor imaging BCI for the last 6 or 7 months, and now I'm working in IIT Madras. I'm a researcher there now. So
Awesome. And how did you guys start working together?
So we actually, Zeta, do you want to tell the story? I wonder if there is some delay.
could you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Can now.
Yeah.
We lost you.
I'm just gonna check my data stream. I'll lower it.
Thank you.
I don't know how much that helps, but Mavi, why don't you tell us?
Okay, yes, of course. GTech, which is also involved with NeurotechX, had a summer school and a hackathon.
Right. Okay.
And Swet and I ended up by chance in the same team and on the SSVP team. And the idea was to improve a classification over what GTech had already done for SSVPs. And that's when we learned about minimum energy combination. And we were like, what is this? Magic? And then we learned that there is, Sweta has worked with CSP, common spatial patterns. And I've reviewed a paper that had used CCA, canonical correlation analysis. And so we were like, which one is the best one? And let's go look at paper. And then we couldn't find anything off the bat. So right now, the project Sweet and I have is to have benchmark those three processes, basically those three, if we can call them feature extraction methods, to see when should we use which one, or if there's a clear winner among the three of them.
Sure. I mean, it's hard to know what exactly to call them. Certainly CSP is more, it's like, because they're all using linear algebra,
exactly.
they're all kind of feature extraction as well. CSP is definitely like optimizing that for a classification. But all of the minimum energy was the only one I had to look up. But again, like seems like that all of them are like, first step is like do PCA.
Yes. So they seem to have different optimizations. So CSP tries to maximize the distance between the two classes. CCA tries to find the closest pattern. So you need a template, and whatever is the closest to the template, that it can find that. And minimum energy combination tries to minimize noise. That's why the minimum energy is the energy of the noise. So to increase the signal to noise ratio.
Sure. So do you have anything you want to show us? Or
yes,
okay.
Can we share some slides?
Yeah. So bottom left-hand corner, there's this little like screen icon. Got.
So is this like the new Zoom or open source Zoom?
Well, it is. It's our open. It's got its own controversies.
I just had been on the phone with Sweta right before this meeting, and I could hear her very well.
Sure.
You guys can see my screen right now?
Yes.
Sweta, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can start.
Okay. Great. So just let me know when to move to the next slide.
Yeah, so as you already know, we are trying to benchmark three types of, I don't know if we can call them feature extractors, but yeah, feature extractors for BCI. So we want to test out CCA, CSP, and MEC for motor imagery and SSVP. We don't want to stick to one type of application like SSVP. We started out with SSVP, but we want to test it out on different types of data sets and see what the results are. So can you go to the next slide? Yeah. Uh, so CSP is I've used CSP for motor imagery before, and I used it for a two-class motor imagery data set, and it worked very well because what CSP does is it's a linear transformation, so it basically increases the variance for one class and decreases the variance for another class. So it becomes easy to classify after you've filtered the signal basically with CSV. And I think CCA and MEC will be explained by Mavi.
Okay. So yes, as I was mentioning earlier, they tried to find the weight matrix for the noise, and then this is for minimum energy combination, and then the objective is to minimize this weight for the noise to increase the signal to noise ratio. And then for CCA, seems to be the hot topic right now. It's based on correlation, but then it was proposed specifically for SSVP on 2006, and then there have been a lot of CCA flavors, but the one that seems to perform the best is the individual template IT CCA. It has the best performance among CCA, but the downside is that you have some training time to get the template before you can use it, if I understood correctly. So I have a little bit of MOAB code here.
Oh.
So what we are hoping to do is to use MOAB, the mother of all BCI benchmark, which seems the appropriate tool for this project. So I loaded it on Google Colab, I installed it there. And MOAB already has motor imagery and it has SSVP functions. And right now, we just have the most simple pipeline, the CSP plus LDA pipeline. And we would like to expand this to have CCA and MEC as well. And I think this may not be implemented in MNE, or so we might need to write those up so that we can compare them with CSP.
I think that they should be relatively easy to get from scikit-learn.
Oh, really? That's
you know, it's I think it'll be yeah, you know, just a question of you know, taking some of the, you know, the PCA functions of scikit-learn for the I mean, CCA for sure, but just the minimum energy, I'm pretty sure is something in scikit-learn. It's just understanding. I just need to understand the math to get it right in scikit-learn.
Wow. So Morgan, I might be talking to you then if I get stuck implementing MEC.
Well, and sorry, stop me if you've got more. But
Oh, I just have one final slide of our doubts so far.
Okay, what are your doubts?
Like a discussion board, which are basically we're paying very little attention to the classifier. Should we pay more attention to the classifier part of it? We want to keep it constant so we can make a fair comparison between the three methods. Also, off the bat, can we compare these three methods, or are they too different to even make this question makes any sense? And then how does motor imagery and SSVP compare? Can we use all these three methods on motor imagery? I know all three have been used on SSVP. And then finally, this is the opening question, kind of more philosophizing, what is feature extraction? Because, for example, for minimum energy combination, it's more of improving signal to noise ratio. So, and this might go back to, can we compare them if one of them is feature extraction while the other one is a classifier, while the other one is improving signal to noise ratio? So I think I'll stop sharing here and open the board, the floor.
Well, I mean, I think thanks again, and it's great to have you guys come on and talk about this after the discussion that we saw on the Slack channel, the Moab Slack channel. So for those of you who haven't seen it already, it's still there on Slack, and the nice thing was that the discussion there also brought in Arvind, who's currently an engineer in Interaxon. And so he had some great suggestions. I mean, one of which was we should all read his master's thesis, or at least as it relates to steady state VEEPs. And but which he also has code on GitHub. And he also had some great suggestions for publicly available steady state VEEP data sets that we didn't currently have in Moab. So it's in preparation for this. I've been, listing, websites that collect publicly available data sets, so that we're thinking about, trying to find more data sets, because, what makes Moab particularly powerful is having multiple data sets, right? Is that too many times somebody works on a method and they work with a data set that they can't share. And so you get a paper with, reports of, success at, some sort of 80%, 90% on whatever measures that they report. And you can't recreate that. And even worse is that you can't include that in a larger set of data sets that you want to use as a benchmark, which is, as Alexander Barachon, who started Moab, talked about, was that, like, the best thing we can do for a benchmark is use multiple data sets. Like, we don't have anything large enough to be a benchmark. And what we really want to have is a better generalization, which really comes from, we don't really know what your data is going to be. So let's try it with high channel count data, low channel count data, noisy data, yeah. And at first, a lot of the data sets were very similar in that it was, real and imagined movement of hands and feet and things like that. But the motor imagery ones have actually gotten much more complicated. Mm-hmm. And certainly one of the things that we talk about in the Moab Slack discussion is that common spatial patterns is a great technique for two-class data. It's I saw that some of the example, or some of the, I think the steady state VEP data set that's in Moab currently is like 12 class data.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I see it listed. It's listed. It's like, I think it's under exoskeleton. So I think it's listed under motor imagery and SSVEP. Anyway, the good thing being that there's lots of data sets that we haven't added yet to Moab. Sylvain has jumped on this, and I mean, the last thing I saw him post in Moab channel was like, I've added 2 or 3 data sets. Did you see that? Yeah. Are they all SSVEP? Sorry, I'm just checking.
Yeah.
And okay, yeah, and so, and the I think the 2016 the Wang 2016 one, I think is from the EEG lab developers. So I think that's like Ziping is the last author, and anyway, that particular paper is a paper that uses a CCA CSP combo.
It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that you'll definitely see in Moab, and again, like I think this is a really underappreciated project, and so I'm loving, I love the fact that we can try and give this some exposure.
This project has value?
Well, not only does this project have value, but like using Moab for this project,
and bringing up, showing it
is you'll actually see that that Moab, as applied to motor imagery dataset, is lots of combinations of CCA plus things, CSP plus things, and Ziping's paper. Ziping Zheng's paper, which I want to say it's either it's one of the ones that that Sylvain lists here, and it's certainly the one that Arvind says like, hey, they've got a publicly available data because I found it. And
so they mix CCA and CSP.
Yes.
So they use CSP for classification and CCA for feature extraction.
Yeah. Or and they do a comparison of CCA CSP against other stuff, and like one of those things is like CCA by itself or CSP by itself, I think. So to your kind of your last slide there, and yeah, and it just happens that this earlier I was just talking about the Simons Institute here at Berkeley is doing a boot camp on probability geometry and something like high dimensional statistics, and so these are all on YouTube. But
okay.
So this is a boot camp. It's not like a conference. It was like getting people ready for doing stats, and there's MIT prof who does a couple of the intros on tensor decomposition. I think absolutely relates to these particular methods that you're using. So it relates in the sense of like your tensor ends up being channels, time, and subjects.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So I'd love, so if you can find more publicly available data sets that Sylvain can add to Moab, I'm really hoping that Sylvain will do a tutorial for us in NeurotechX Paris time. So he lives just outside of Paris. They were going to do a hackathon like right before lockdown. Like I think they were scheduled to do one in like mid-March, and it got canceled. But you know, the so Sylvain Chevalier is his name, and he did a workshop for the Graz BCI Society meeting that was like last fall, like so fall 2019. Sylvain and Marco Congido and others did like a workshop on Moab and Riemannian, you know, Riemannian classification, because of course, you know, the other thing that's, you know, really kind of baked into Moab is you know, Alexander Barachant's and Marco Congido's Riemannian take on setting up classification problem in Riemannian space, right? And so, like, I will say that I found it to be really useful. I'll try and find this link in a minute, but there's Sylvain has a GitHub repo of all the course material, of like their workshop material for the Graz meeting last fall that covers, you know, like the math behind pi Riemann. And some discussion of Moab. I'm going to try and find that right now.
I was wondering if anybody else in the audience had any
please.
feedback, or what are your thoughts on comparing CCA, CSP, and minimum energy combination?
Right before you gave the presentation, there was a little bit of a discussion about hardware of Oculus versus the Vive versus other things like that. So I'm curious if you're going to be taking that into account. I mean, you may have already been considering it, but how the refresh rates and you know, I don't know if clock speed is an appropriate word for VR headset, but like how all that comes into play with your experiments too. And then on top of that, is there a way in Moab to label the data sets based on, you know, the input hardware that you're using? You know.
Yeah, those are good questions. I haven't thought about that at all. I think it's mostly labeled based on what was the participant doing when the data was collected. So it might be SSVP or motor imagery. So the VR, I don't know how much the VR will impact the classification performance. But the data collection part, the acquisition, the sample rate, and all of that, you're right, they're all going to be different. So how can we compare across?
Yeah, we've done a couple experiments with that and have noticed it makes a very big difference. So I would definitely include that in your research.
Can you specify a little bit more of what makes a very big difference? Is it just the samples rate, or is it something else?
The refresh rate, yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it. And especially trying to sync it up specifically with that hardware, it's a pretty tough computational task. So, yeah.
The nice thing with these particular data sets is that they were, you know, all collected by research groups with you know, real tight control over the hardware.
Great.
You know, and certainly you know, one of the things, and this has come up in the discussion of Moab in particular in the GitHub issues, because somebody's been also trying to add some stuff to Moab, and some you know, I saw Sylvain's response, which was like, we try not to do pre-processing in Moab. And
does that include feature extraction?
Well, so this is the gray area, right? But you know, what he was trying to say was like, if everybody would call it pre-processing, then like do that in M&E before, and you know, and what they want to try and kind of download is kind of like pre-processed, ready to go. But you know, you can do your spatial filters and other things, and those would all be, you know, yeah, part of what my lab should be doing. But in particular, things like, you know, doing your, you know, randomization, doing your, you know, separation into test and train, and, you know, all the kind of like infrastructure that you need for you know, decoding and classifying.
All of that can be easily be done in MOAB. You
Yes.
mean, right?
Yes, yeah, or certainly like that's what we're yeah, that's what we, you know, and it seemed like Sylvain was trying to keep it as like, that's all we do here. like trying not to bring in too much of that. I think what you'll see, Dan, just to your point about things like sampling rates, is that, like, you know, most people, most researchers will downsample their kind of like, even their fast, you know, sampled data. And so, you know, I don't know if we'll have time right now to talk about it, but the ERP core data set, which is this one that that they had a webinar this week, and again, that webinar will be available for a week for those who want to check out the link. And they collected data at like 1,000 samples per second, but like one of the first operations they do is downsampling the data. But that puts it basically into the kind of the sampling rate of consumer hardware devices. And yeah.
I have a question for Mavi about the methods that she was employing for her research. As you know, and maybe this is an open question, all those methods, you know, use training and test sets, so they train a model. But you know, this requires a supervised approach. So do you know, for SSVPs or for motor imagery, if there are equivalent methods that are unsupervised? So just plug and play, you know, try to make sense out of the data only.
Ooh, that's challenging. The only thing that comes to mind is LDA. No, LDA is also supervised. Yeah, no, I think it's much easier if there is some theoretical background that explains the classes, and then you just look for those theoretical expectations. Like, for example, motor imagery, if you're moving the right hand, you expect to see activity on the left hemisphere and such. Those, I think those expectations are much better than going in the dark. But I can imagine there are many applications where you are going to classify the data in the dark, but I don't have specific algorithms for that.
Yeah, and the rationale to do that, or the use case, would be, you know, think about a consumer application where, you know, you have a disabled person that doesn't have the time to do the training, for example, and then, you know, it's uncomfortable on a wheelchair, motorized wheelchair, and then you want to provide the fastest classification, you know, plug and play and go, and then, you know, a bit rough, but that kind of works 70% of the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if it could be pre-trained maybe on a general database or in a large pool of people, maybe it's more generalizable.
Got it.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
So I see somebody in chat just asking about ICA, and you know, so the particular question: how can we preserve the activity in different channels cortex with ICA? Certainly, yeah. You see that down the bottom. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Emily, just so people know, M&E does have ICA functionality, and if you use the M&E lab in particular, which again I've got listed off the meetup agenda, you've got the choice of a number of different ICA optimizations, anyway, the big problem with ICA is, of course, component identification. So one of the reasons that EEG Lab and, again, the discussion of ERP core, a lot of the scripts for ERP core processing are about ICA cleanup and still manually going through and identifying good and bad components, and then reconstructing the components you want to keep. That's how people do it. We're one of the opportunities with ERP core, by having this very conservative ERP lab, having kind of like hand tuned all the pre-processing and quality control, is that it's actually a pretty good data set for us to test some automated techniques for that kind of component identification. And yeah, so definitely would love to see us do that more. But yeah, these techniques that you've talked about, we're not doing. We don't have to choose components. We don't have to do any kind of labeling. So these are kind of like, yeah, pretty standard, either spatial filters or linear transforms that are okay. And it's one of the reasons why they are used. and again, I'll drop a link for the Simons Institute discussion of tensor decompositions, but yeah, the one cool thing being that there's some things that you can do if tensor decompositions that are even better than the kind of traditional PCA based 2D techniques. And good. Any other comments for Mavi and Sweta? What I'm really hoping is you'll come back and keep us posted. And so and Arvind, whose thesis was posted in the Moab channel, and he's got a convolutional neural net for SSVEPs that he's going to come and talk to us about in a couple weeks. So looking forward to that, and just hearing about that particular approach, because again, there's some really attractive things about that. There's some really, really large data sets of steady state VEP data that are definitely not in Moab. So one of those is the Child Mind Institute data, right? So that includes a steady state VEP task. So that means that there's a couple thousand subjects of 128 channel EEG in a really good visual psychophysics steady state VEP task. And yeah, so great. Thanks Mavi, and thanks Sweta.
Yeah, thank you, Morgan, for this opportunity. We're hoping to come back with updates and with our findings and
please.
Our experience.
Yeah, and so for those interested, again, like go check out Moab. It's a great project. We're looking at it in ERP core because in addition to the ERP core pre-processing and analysis routines to get you to ERPs and grand average ERPs, the webinar that Steve Luck did about 2 months ago is basically covering work he did with his grad student Bay, who's now at ASU. Sorry, I can't remember his first name, but is decoding, right? So ERPs are being, are decoding in time. So that's it's a little bit different, but at the same time, it's a lot of the same infrastructure, right? So we could basically just use Moab for a lot of that same infrastructure And in the case of ERB-Core, because they give us all the intermediary results, we've got the .set files right now that we can feed into Moab and just be looking at the decoding of these ERBs, which is so again, like this data set is open and available for everybody, and if you're interested, be very happy to help with that. And again, this is it's an open project. Check out NeurotechX's GitHub. Cool. So thank you. And so I'm gonna try and check in with Alex. No. Sure.